Timaru wa mjambo. Timaru, Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Hebu mnisalimie hewani watu wa Timaru nione, watu ni Timaru nione kwa mkono. Hey! Yaani mmekuja kwa wingi kiasi hiyo? Kuria hoye! Kuria hoye! Mimi kwanza niko na shukurani mara mbili. Ya kwanza, mimi niko na shukurani kwa imani yenu na kwa kura zenu na kwa maombi yenu. Mimi nasema asante sana watu wa Kuria na watu wa Kuria East. Sawa sawa. Jambo la pili, mimi niko na shukurani vile vile kwa sababu nyinyi ni wakulima sugu sana. Mumenisaidia kuhakikisha kwamba Kenya inapata chakula. Wakati tulikubaliana na nyinyi, mkaniambia ya kwamba nipunguze gharama ya mbolea. Simulinieleza jameni? Hiyo mbolea ilikuwa 5,000 6,000, nikapunguza ikakuja 2,500. Na nyinyi hamkuniangusha, mkarudi shambani, mkazalisha chakula. Bei ya unga ilikuwa 240, imeteremka sasa iko 150, ikiteremka ikienda chini. Watu wa Kuria, mimi nasema asante sana my friends. Nyinyi ni watu wa maana sana kwa sababu mnatusaidia kulisha taifa letu la Kenya. Na ni kwa sababu mliniambia nisimamie mambo ya kilimo, ndio kilimo iweke pesa kwa mfuko ya wananchi wa kulima. Ndio sababu vile vile ile bei ya kahawa ilikuwa inatusumbua kwa sababu ya watu makatel na watu watapeli. Sasa tumepanga mambo sawa sawa, tumetoa leseni ya mabroka, tumetoa leseni ile ya millers, tumehakikisha kwamba Nairobi Coffee Exchange inaendelea vizuri. Ile bei ya kahawa ilikuwa shilingi 50 kwa kilo, sasa imefika 100 ikielekea 150. Mimi nawaambia wakulima asante sana.
Watu wa Timaru hamujambo? Hamujambo tena?
Welcome to Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. Noordean, a few days ago, the IEBC Independent Panel gave out names of proposed commissioners, and some members of the opposition said that President Ruto failed to respect what they assumed that is a policy of consultation and concurrence, and he said the opposition would give a statement on Monday, but yesterday he did about turn, and he said that they're happy to go to the elections, even if President Ruto is the chairman of IEBC. What do you make of Kalonzo's position on the nominees?
Well, it's the usual political rhetoric, in that the political players want to be the referee, the players, the owner of the club, and the football itself. They want to control everything, which, if you ask me...
Plus the pitch,
you know. And
to control the floodlights.
If you ask me, it's absurd, because you see, all these fears that they have, for example, were settled by a court. The Supreme Court settled all this in saying that the results at the polling station are final. So deploy good agents, so that even if there is some kangaroo business that wants to be done somewhere, it can't be done. You know, and you know, I would hate to use this person as a reference, but let me just use Idi Amin. You know, he said, if you feel the referee is against you, win via knockout. Just knock out your opponent. There is no way they will say the opponent is a winner. So plan yourselves, plan your agents properly, mobilize properly, let people vote. Whatever is tallied at the polling station isn't. That's the end of it. Whatever they do up there, so long as it's not as per the polling station, then the court now will come in, you know. So let them stop being jittery, and at the end of the day, they will all want to control. Whoever gets their controls, but that was settled a long time ago, if you ask me. 2013 is a very long time ago, if you ask me.
Now, Cathy, a number of stakeholders have said that the nominees are defective, and that they are blaming the selection committee of coming up with what they describe as defective nominees. And the procedure is that there was an advert in the newspaper online, and Kenyans who think they've got capacity and competence applied. and the selection committee, in their wisdom, they picked from the pool of the people who had applied.
Yeah.
And it's now in the public space. There are a number of people who have got very high talent, high capacity, did not apply because it's assumed that if you become the chair of IBC or you become a commissioner, that is a professional suicide. In fact, it even reminds one that when Mr. Fuller Chebukati passed on, a number of people were literally dancing on his grave. Would you blame the IBC selection committee for the names that they picked, or would you blame Kenyans for this phobia of applying?
No. I mean, we shouldn't even blame either. The thing is, politics is politics, and what IEBC is supposed to oversee is actually a political process. So what is happening is that there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of incitement from the opposition, so to speak. And why do I say that? I mean, when the IEBC selection committee was named, the opposition, led by Kalonzo Musyoka, they had an issue with that. And they said, you must include, and you must remove, and you must edit, and you must do this. And he seemed to have a huge interest in the inclusion of one particular member. And you remember how much time we took even to get the selection committee itself. Then here we are, the names are dropped, and we also the names. I mean, it was in the open. It was in public domain. During the interviews were done in public. And then this, where we are now. And I think they were all surprised. I think most of us, including myself, you remember when I was here, I was actually rooting for a lady. I thought we had two women whom I thought were very competent. And for the first time, I was thinking maybe it's time to pick a female chair for IEBC, and I gave my reasons. And I think just like I was surprised to see Wakili, being picked there as the chair, is the same surprise that has taken the members of the opposition. But I think what we should do is just to allow IEBC do its work. We have stayed without an IEBC for a very long time. Constituting it was paramount because we have some areas, especially some constituencies that have not had a member of parliament for 2 years, others for many, many months. So it is really not fair to keep subjecting the country to all this drama, and it's unnecessary, so to speak. So we need to move on. We need to see them carry out the by-elections, and we need to see them start getting ready for 2027. All these other excitement, incitements, and the fears that seem, Kalonzo Musyoka seems very worried, and I don't think he should be worried about the IEBC, whether the chair, the selection panel, or whoever else. He should be more worried about the opposition and how they are going to carry out their business between now and 2027.
Now, the High Court has pronounced itself on where the presidential elections is held, and as Noordean would clarify, it's very clear. This is not at the constituency level. Yes. So, if you're running for a presidential election, should it worry you what the name of the chairman and the number of commissioners?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't, but if you look back at the other elections that we've held before, first of all, remember that the IEBC chair is the national returning, is it the returning officer?
For the presidential election.
Officer for the presidential election. And I think the fear has always, with the opposition, the fear has always been like, is it my guy? Is it my person? Is it a person who is likely to favor the other person? I don't know whether you saw these. There's a lot that was flying on Facebook and Twitter, and people said, oh, the chair is a cousin, or I don't know, Mr. X, a relative of who. There's actually, and why I'm calling it incitement, there's actually a move by the opposition to try and link him to the president. Maybe show like they are friends or related or something like that. And I think we should not concentrate on that now. The focus should be on, let's have the by-elections, and let's prepare for 2027. There's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and 2027. There's a lot of capacity building that needs to happen within the IEBC as an institution. And then beyond that, there's also a lot of capacity building and familiarization even for the candidates themselves. So let the work start. We shouldn't block them,
Now, Meshack, you've been seen in political rallies very close to Mr. Raila Odinga, and he has not expressed his position around these names. So is it prudent for Kenyans to assume that Mr. Raila Odinga is not going to the streets and is happy with the nominees?
That in the first place, would suggest that it is Mr. Odinga who usually go on the street. Are you suggesting so?
Far from me. I'm just suggesting that he has capacity to go to the streets if he's unhappy with anything in Kenya.
Oh, okay. I don't think in history there is a time he's gone on street when an IEBC commission is appointed. He has gone on the street when an election has been conducted and he feels was not meeting the...
But when he wants to remove commissioners from office?
When that commission has done a bad job. But I haven't seen any history where a commission has been appointed and then he is on the street before that commission does something that...
Now you've raised a fundamental question.
Yeah.
Who determines whether or not IBC has done a good job?
Yes, that is where the question is. But coming to the background of the elections we've had, I would hold a different opinion if you ask me, because Kenyans like Kalonzo Musyoka and others in the opposition would be worried based on some experiences they've had in other elections. Number one, when a president, our system, this is now a question of the system, not including our constitution as it is, not just an individual. But when a president is seeking his second term and a commission like IEBC is being formed, the president has an upper hand against the other opponents automatically, because the selection panel will have names. Maybe there are 3, 4, or 5 names for the position of the chair, and another 10, 12, or whatever number that is given to him by the selection panel. Even though the selection panel was consultative and has individuals from these political players or parties, that is okay. But at the end of the game, it is the president who determines who becomes the chair of this committee, the commission, and who becomes the members of this commission. That's an upper hand because the same president is going to run. And that, I think, is where Kalonzo and the rest are coming from. If you are going to be a player in this game, you are going to play with us in this match against us, and you already have an upper hand in select or determining who becomes the chair of this or the referee, the main referee, and then who becomes the linesman in this game, is in that an upper hand in itself. But I don't think it is just a political question. It's a question of the law, because it is the law that gives the president, the sitting president, that authority to do that. So maybe it is time Kalonzo should stop focusing on William Ruto as the president doing this, but maybe focus on his members of parliament and other parliamentarians who are in that coalition of opposition to see whether there is part of the law that they can amend to bring justice if they so believe that will be justice. Because the truth is, it is William Ruto who determined who the chair of IEBC will be in this election facing us, and who the commissioners will be. But the names were many, but he was the last person to determine who becomes part of that.
But is he determining that as a President William Ruto 2027 presidential candidate, or the head of state and government today?
We cannot assume that, yes, that he is going to run in that race as a candidate. So Kenyans have a choice to make there.
Your argument suggests that he is given a blank check.
Yes.
But these are people who have already applied. They've gone through the selection committee.
Yes.
And Noordean, I think for the chairman position, is given 2 names.
Yeah.
So literally that's tied. But from your conversation, one would imagine you are suggesting we go the Judicial Service Commission way, that the names as presented by the Judicial Service Commission to the president,
yes,
cannot be tampered with, that the president only becomes a conveyor belt.
Because our background and experience tells that we don't trust each other in this country a lot.
But are we supposed to trust each other?
We are supposed to trust. We don't know the chair of IEBC, quote unquote, from America. But that election is watched by all of us from the beginning to the end. But we still end up not knowing who the commissioners are, because they trust each other to a certain level.
It's done at the state level.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, maybe we need to just agree as a country and say, once the selection panel conducts the interviews and they rate these people, probably the president should just be given the name. And then we cannot now say the president determined who was going to be IEBC commissioners and who was going to be the chair. Maybe that is the route I personally think would be much fairer. Because Kalonzo knows he had somebody in that selection panel. Raila had some people in that selection panel. Ruto had and others. So if that panel agreed on Dismus as the chair of the IEBC, I'm not saying you are, but it should give them confidence that all of them agreed, other than another person who is going to be a key player in that match is the one going to, because that is where Kalonzo now says maybe there should have been a consultation, but that consultation, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I don't think it is part of the law. It is just good practice, maybe.
But out of curiosity, Cathy, did you apply to be an IBC commissioner? Why?
You didn't want to die.
No. No, I didn't apply. And in future I might. I think one of the ways that we're going to instill a bit of sanity and even give people hope, you know, and inspire them that something good is happening in there is by having as many women as possible in some of those organizations.
But now
in some of those organizations.
Now I'm fearing when Cathy will apply and will be given the job, some people will dig down this clip and I will be vying for presidency then. They will pin me to Cathy and say, you see, these people are friends.
I think there's something that my brother has raised, and it is actually legit. It's actually the reality. In this country, we've made politics and everything else, including oversight, a matter of personalities, you know, as opposed to a space where we can deliberate on issues, a space where we can say we are putting together an IEBC. Why? Because of 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the qualities of a good chair? You know, we really, everything is politicized. I don't know how. And you know, when it comes to politics, and as I've said, we play politics or personalities, then you'll definitely try to tarnish the other person's name. You try to drag this one and connect them to this one. You remember in 2022, because I was actively involved in that election, especially at the presidential level, some people from Azimio believed that it was unsafe to go into that election with the late Chebukati as the chair. Our presidential candidate was very confident that it's okay. I've worked with him before. I was in opposition before, and he still, you know, carried out. Presidential candidate was Mr. Of course, and he was very confident. But wait until we lost that election. Again, everything changed. We told you, you know, as like we could say, you know, but we had said. Then he would also say, no, you know, things happen like this. Anyway, it's exactly what he's saying, that we've personalized things so much, such that even a matter of national importance or even a matter of national security, we still have to go dig deep and pick 1, 2, 3 things, bring them again and create a concoction of lies and rumor, and we start all these things in town.
So it would appear that in Kenya, an election is free and fair and credible when you win, but if you lose...
In fact, the question is this, because you're right. Then at what point do we make it fair for everyone? You know, if I'm running against you in a presidential race, is it that for it to be fair, I must have my person, and in most of the time, a person from my tribe? If you check,
no, it's only fair when you win.
No, I think the first fairness is the chair my guy? Is the chair my guy? Then you start from there, and then as you progress, and that is exactly what Kalonzo was trying to tell us with the lady senior counsel Koki. I mean, the question is, at what point are we going to separate all these things of tribe, you know, from our politics, that unless I have my person there, he has just said, and it is true, that it required each of these political players to bring their person. So until I bring my person, that is the only time I'll feel. I think what we need to do, and I think we have seen this happen, and I am happy Wakili is here, there's been a bit of progress. We have progressed quite a bit. We might not be making those, we are making baby steps, kidogo, but we are almost getting there. We need institutions to run some of these affairs. Tunaondoa wanasiasa, because it's the politicians who make these things very murky, you know, and very complicated.
You know, all over the world, if you want to have a very strong electoral body, it's basics that you come up with predictable systems for unpredictable outcomes. And for me, it goes back to IEBC. Because IEBC in Kenya is a solid agency, all they need to do is to make noise, go to the top of Mount Kenya and tell Kenyans, these are the predictable systems that we have created for unpredictable outcomes. It's the case that in most countries in the third world, you can actually predict who's going to win an election before an election is held. But in Kenya, it's very tight. And a good election is where the winner has got 51 and then the loser has got 48. No, 32, then you start smelling a rat. I mean, in other countries.
No, we'll say it at Arakanidi. We'll say that Arakanidi happened.
Yeah. So I don't know whether Noordean you're qualified to be a Supreme Court judge, but did you apply for this role at IEBC?
I have no interest in becoming an IEBC commissioner.
You have an interest in criticizing IEBC?
No. I have an interest in seeing IEBC work. You see, the problem we have, or the problem like what is facing Kalonzo, starts from the reason where you have political players deciding to sit down, have a selection panel representing their interests. That is the problem. That is where the problem starts. Because, so where are the interests of Kenyans? Because you see, what lacks in IEBC is chapter 6, leadership and integrity. What makes the results not credible to some people? Leadership and integrity. So we need to raise the threshold in leadership and integrity. It's not about the consultation they have, the kangaroo consultation they have, then they decide, oh, we put this guy and this guy. That doesn't matter. So long as you have someone there who upholds chapter 6, irrespective of whoever is in office, who might seek a re-election or not, if the results do not favor them, that person will announce the said results. And this person will accept and move on, because we are being told to accept and move on, sympathize and move on, right? So at the end of the day, you have a scenario where political players want to control everything. And that is why we have these issues. You see, we cannot come here and say that there's no interest. The moment you have, which something I saw as odd was, yes, everybody had their own representative. But when you have someone of the caliber like Professor Olo, you are an advisor to the president, you're an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, you understand issues of conflict of interest. What are you doing in that committee? It doesn't make sense,
But he had already resigned his role as an advisor.
No, he's still an advisor. So you see, where did he resign? It's not anywhere. You see, the sad reality is that, as he rightfully says, the president has an upper hand. And he's on record telling people, mimi nimejipanga 2027. Umejipanga aje? And you're not working, umejipanga aje? So unafanya nini? You see, and that is a problem we have. You do not want to follow the law. Recently, he talked to a dead man and told people he's going to buy land. All right? The president has no power to buy land. PFM Act talks about budgeted expenditure. Is it budgeted, that money?
Well, you just said my government.
No, it's our government, not his government. And
okay, maybe you said my administration.
You see, the sad reality is that we have laws in abundance, but you don't follow the laws. You want to be law unto yourself. It can't work. And that is why we will have these issues of people saying, oh, we feel aggrieved. Now, I have a question for you. We have Raila, Kalonzo, and Ruto, who had people in the selection committee as their representatives. Now, what if you are Vine or I don't have someone there? How is that fair to me as a person?
We'll go back to the leadership and integrity.
Exactly.
Yeah, but as a lawyer, I'm informed you're a lawyer of rank. Would we say we have sufficient criminal and pecuniary penalties in the electoral process so that if an electoral officer, somebody employed by IEBC, or a supplier working for IEBC during the general elections, that if somebody commits an error either by omission or commission, that we have heavy penalties that would make sure that if you make a mistake, either by design or default, you are sufficiently punished.
We have, we have laws, we have penalties.
Is there anybody behind bars from 1963?
Now here's the thing. It depends with where you're playing from. It's just like our corruption. If you are in government, you're safe. If you're outside, the Subaru will be at your doorstep every other day. You see, it's in Kenya we usually say that you might say that the police don't work or the agencies don't work until you commit a crime and you are not in good books with the government of the day. You will find yourself in issues. All right? So at the end of the day, it's not that we don't have laws. We have laws. It's just that those who are quote unquote allegedly seen to be doing wrong acts are favored by someone who is actually in office at the time. So no one will come for them. Until that day, we decide that you are closer buddies to me and I'm in office and you engage in corruption. And you remember who used to say, zile simu ni mezima. Which simus were those? Because those who are closer to him would do something and call him. So no one will come after them.
You recall the Justice Maraga court nullified a presidential election.
Yes.
And they said the elections were marred by irregularities, illegalities, and the full judgment says that there were things which bordered on criminal offenses. Is there anybody behind bars?
No one.
You recall that then DPP said that he was going to prosecute people. Was anybody ever prosecuted?
The same DPP that withdraws cases. Which one? You see, I go back to this. So long as you're in good books with the government of the day, that's how clear how things are. Nothing will happen to you. But the day you become suddenly clever, then they'll remind you that you did something wrong. So they will come for you. All right? That's how it works. We have weaponized or politicized the law and how it's supposed to operate, in that we protect those who are cronies and punish those who are seen to be against us, which is wrong if you ask me.
Now, Meshack.
I'm still thinking, why can't we have that part which all of us here on the table and Kenyans know, that an election result will be declared at the constituency? Because the law says in 290 constituencies. Why is that not operational? Because as we speak, that is just what the law says. But we have bombers. Where is bombers in our constitution? Because if the election was to be determined and announced there, then we didn't need bombers. You and I would just sit down on TV and see who has become the president. Because I will see in one of the media houses the election of Langata constituency being announced. Candidate A has garnered this much. Candidate B has I can even take pen and paper. By the time all the constituencies have been done, I don't have to wait for the announcement at Bomas. But here, as we speak, that is in the law. But at the Bomas, you will be told all you have had is nothing. It is called, there is a name they call provisional. Until Chebukati, quote unquote, goes to announce, that is the official result. So even the media house like yours here will not tell us who has won, even when you know for sure so-and-so has won. No, so why is that not operational?
Meshack,
because that is where the Kizungumkuti is.
No, but Meshack, you've successfully assaulted logic. All this information is posted in the portal or server, whichever name we want to use. So using your calculator, I see you've got an expensive mobile phone. Yeah. You can actually tally all the 290 constituencies and you'll get a figure. But the figure you have is provisional. It's not official. Official, it has to come from IBC. You even remember during the last elections, media houses were struggling trying to tabulate because getting the information from the servers proved to be a bit of a nightmare. But talking about 2027...
In fact, I keep asking myself this much. We have been able to digitalize a lot of things. And at times I feel like Kenyans and or the people that are represented in IEBC and all these other important institutions are tech savvy. Is it possible for Kenya to conduct a general election electronically? And I think that would make a whole lot of difference.
And why not? I mean, we transfer money electronically.
On M-Pesa, we do M-Pesa. We do our transactions. Nowadays, we don't carry money. You know, you go to the supermarket with money on your M-Pesa and you transact. You go everywhere. You pay your people with them. I mean, through M-Pesa. Why can't we run the election electronically also?
Because you know people have to make money through procurement of ballot papers. That is another scam.
No, but you can procure the app.
Exactly.
Here's the thing.
But there is Camargo.
Two things.
Sorry?
There is Camargo.
Here's the thing. That is the ideal situation, which I would support. But we have a country where it's a country of entrepreneurs. Someone wants to make money through the procurement process.
In fact, I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. When we were at Bomas in 2022, during as we were, receiving the tally, I remember the numbers came in very well until I think constituency number 50-something, 58 or 57.
Yeah.
And from there, problems started.
Yes.
And we waited.
By design. We invited church choirs.
It's by design.
Yeah, then the church choirs came in to entertain us.
Yes.
It's by design.
That was another mistake.
Yeah.
It's by design.
I always blame myself for dancing to those songs because I was very, very happy dancing up there.
No, that's
did you know?
That's why I'm saying we need to scrap off Bomas.
The trickling of that information. actually got stuck at around constituency number 58. It took a day, almost 2 days. Then there was noise at Bomas. We all made noise and said, how come we were able to receive all this? And there was nothing. Let me tell you what happened. The day we were announcing the president, again, information trickled very fast. There was magic.
Yeah.
Now, so basically, I mean, why can't we make these things easier? Why can't we make this easier by just doing it online?
Yeah, I think we need to do an app.
Because, in fact, at times when I listen to the noise that has been made by the younger people or the young people, I really pity them. Because unless something like that happens, we should not expect a lot of change at the polling station.
Now, talking about 2027, so that we move to the next topic, Meshack, I understand you're a member of ODM. ODM has got an MOU with UDA. Is President William Ruto your presidential candidate for 2027?
No, it's not part of that MOU.
But Mr. Mbadi, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary and an ODM member of rank, as a
now he's ODM member, not of rank. He resigned.
He's just a member. So whatever he says about ODM, we don't place a premium on it.
No, he sits in no ODM organ right now. He has his opinion as a member of ODM and as a former ranking official. But right now, I think it was open to all Kenyans at KICC, the MOU and the 10 points agenda. None of those agenda was about 2027 elections. So I think it is just supposed to be left that way. Today, we are supporting how Kenya can move forward as a country on 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10 issues.
But in 2027...
anything about 2027 will be decided by the party organs, the membership, and everybody who belong to that party. I don't know why people are so curious about ODM and what position they will pick in 2027. It is democracy. They are allowed.
But Meshack, wouldn't you be surprised if people are not curious?
I would be surprised if.
So are you surprised that they're surprised?
I am surprised because there are many parties. If they were not curious, I would ask, yes, but we are also a party. Why are you only curious about other parties?
No, we have about...
But here, I am surprised because they are only curious about ODM and there are many other parties. So you get where the surprise about surprise is.
Before we go to Noordean, who is furiously taking notes, Cathy, I understand you're a member of Jubilee. And Mr. Jeremiah Kioni has been talking about the candidature of Dr. Fred Matiang'i. So are all of you aligned behind Dr. Fred Matiang'i?
Well, that's a complicated one. I think the mambo ya opposition ni ngumu. But okay, let's start from here. Yes, and I remember there's a time you asked me, or we discussed that here with you and Mwangale last some weeks ago, and it was about whose candidate is Fred Matiang'i. And I answered you at that point. I said the person who went publicly and declared in public, the Gen Zs are actually the ones who started, and the Gen Zs mentioned Dr. Fred Matiang'i because I think they grew up seeing and knowing him as a doer, a person who really streamlined the education sector. Maybe they were in class 8 or something. Maybe that was during KCP and KCSE and all those manner of things. So they went out and mentioned his name. Of course, it triggered a lot of excitement on social media. Then later, I know it's my SG, Jeremiah Kioni, who also went public and said, as Jubilee, this is our candidate. I want to say that, as far as I know, Fred Matiang'i, who is not someone you can write off, is a strong candidate, actually very strong. And if you want to know he's a strong candidate, just look at how the government has reacted. The moment he came out and declared, just see how they have all been pushed to all sides, and they are doing all manner of things, including trying to discredit. He's a credible candidate. But on whether he is still a Jubilee candidate, I think he's not a Jubilee candidate anymore. I saw the reception and the treatment that my SG got in Kisii, and I was not very impressed. I later saw Fred Matiang'i in my village. Again, my SG was not there.
Your village is Wamunyoro?
Yes, my village is Wamunyoro. So it's like he left Jubilee, he left us, and he got some new home or some new allies, which is okay, because as a political players, he needs all these friends. That's fine. But I think things are not as rosy as they started off, and that is expected in politics. If there's one constant that personally I have seen in politics, is actually maybe two: betrayal and misinformation, or what we call propaganda. Because, in fact, that is the same thing that is triggering all this noise that we are talking about. They don't want this person to be the chair of IEBC because they don't trust each other. It is the same thing that is eating Raila Odinga in the broad-based government. Everybody would expect him to be happy. But when you really look at him and listen to him, he's telling us a lot. There's more than meets the eye. In fact, their arrangement can go very far. In fact, I will not be surprised if Raila Odinga declares to run for presidency in 2027. Everything points at that.
Now, Noordean, the Wamunyoro chief, every time he goes to the podium, he says, Mimi namjua Ruto, and I want to make him a one-term president. And then he says, Ruto must go. Do you believe that is a winning message?
You see, he's not the one who started saying Ruto must go. Eh? It's most of the people who have felt like he has not achieved most of the things he promised he would achieve, which most of them are populists proposals. Eh? So at the end of the day, Gachagua comes from a point of one, his heart. He feels betrayed. So his personal. It's away from maybe you and I what we would want. Ordinarily, I would want him to go as well. That doesn't mean I support Gachagua.
That's Mr. Rigathi Gachagua.
Yeah, but Gachagua spoke from a point of we were together, we worked together, we got in office, you removed me.
Where would you like Rigathi Gachagua to go? I'm
not talking about Gachagua, I'm talking about the president of the day.
Okay, where would you like the president of the day to go?
He's a colossal failure, and that is the truth of the matter.
No, not why. Where? Where would you like him to go?
Where he came from.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day. Yeah. Not politically. Not politically. He can go anywhere. He has so many homes. He can go anywhere. He now has a retirement home in Kilgore.
So you want to go back to Karen?
Or Karen, anywhere. So at the end of the day, you see, like I've told you, Gachagua speaks from a point of anger and it all. But now, you see, we also have to have an agenda, all right, in saying that the problem we have as a country is one. We have coalitions, as she says. People come together. The agenda is one person. So once you eliminate that person and you get to the office, you start fighting amongst each other because your agenda was not the people. Tumetoa Ruto. Sasa tumeingia. So you'll fight amongst yourselves. But if your agenda is to promote a better living standard for people, to observe the law, and make Kenya a better place, there will be no issue. Because if today, we have so many consultations and forums and everything, even prayer breakfasts. If today their discussions were pegged on how to make the lives of Kenyans better, that thing doesn't even need 1 hour. They know the things that ails the country. But what makes this issue acrimonious is personal interests. Right now, people are saying that, Gachagua might not decide to vie, he might actually support one person. If the court clears him, what stops him? He has tasted power. How do you tell such a person, we can't win, tusukume sisi, trust us? After knowing already, he knows that there's no trust in this thing. He told us that he went into this thing because of a Bible. He didn't sign anything. How dumb are you? Even today, if you tell me you got into an agreement with someone, not an agreement, and you call me, I'll tell you you're dumb because you don't trust people on face value. All right?
But in law, they say the only contract which must be signed is when you're buying land.
No, even you're selling a car. Even today, if you're selling me these things, we draft a contract. So that kesho nisichukue, then I tell you where did you give me? You see.
But even in MOUs in this country are not honored. You remember what actually made because we were there in, was it 2000 after the post-election violence, after we formed the Nusumkate government. Even the Kibaki Raila MOU was not honored. And when you look back and you go back to history and see how people have behaved before even during Kenyatta's, because they were a coalition, in as much as they didn't include so many communities or tribes for that matter, they still had some coalitions of some sort. And look at all those relationships, how people related, how they came together to remove this and then put this and then do this. They don't honor these things. And that is why even the coalitions that has even the new alignment with the opposition is shaky. When you look at the broad-based government, as we speak right now, it's shaky. And actually, for me, Dismus, do you know what all these guys should do? They should keep off politics and allow new people who mean well for this country, people who have an agenda. It should never be about an individual.
But people who mean well and people
like
who have
now,
an agenda.
Fred Matiang'i, Fred Matiang'i didn't have to join these characters? Why did he go there? I mean, the Gen Zs asked for him and they didn't tell him that you must come and join these characters. Why did he go there?
Let's get the answer from Meshack, because your party leader is the common denominator in all MOUs in Kenya. All MOUs. I mean, you can talk about President Kibaki, you can talk about President Kenyatta, let's say, actually, in Kenya, in applied political science, it said that you can win an election in Kenya, but if Mr. Raila Odinga is unhappy, you will not govern.
Let's begin from saying the MOUs in our lifetime, not all MOUs. I don't know the MOUs between Odinga and Kenyatta's, but they had theirs, the Tom Mboyas and all those. I don't think Raila was part of that. But today in our lifetime...
Odinga is the one who made the greatest sacrifice in this country. He made Kenyatta the president.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm following his sentiments.
Raila's
not
MOUs.
all MOUs, but MOUs in our time, because we are certainly in the same age set.
So you think
the MOUs we have seen.
So you think we were not around when President Kenyatta was president?
No, we were not around.
Are you talking about yourself?
I know. So what you are asking is, I think we need to lay the facts the way they are. Before 2002, we were having Raila in the ballot in 1997. And he accepted that he lost. As to whether Moi won was a different question. And actually, it is being propagated in many media houses. It is not Raila who went to the street in 1997. It is Kibaki and others who felt that Moi stole that election. But nobody wants to say it so. Because Raila has gone to the street many times, it is said that even in 1997, it was Raila. Raila just decided to work with Moi in 1997. But again, people want to downplay the role he played by working with Moi, because I am trying to imagine if he didn't work with Moi, then what? Because Moi was going to go on, and probably we were never going to see KANU out of power. We both need to accept that at some point, his move to work with Moi actually broke KANU apart and got us Kibaki in 2002. Why is somebody not seeing that? People see him having an MOU with Moi and get stuck there and not moving forward to what that MOU actually gave this country. That is selfish on people who are propagating that. Because if we want to do the correct history, we need to see, yes, he worked with Moi in this MOU, but what did that give Kenya? Even after the 2007 elections, which was chaotic, we know the things that happened. Were we expecting that he continues to fight and Kenyans continues to die? Because we both know what happened in that election of 2007. So why are we not seeing what happened after that? Because his working relationship with Kibaki after 2008 post-election brought back the country which we were already losing. Supposedly he said, I won this election and I am taking nothing less, because that was the position of William Ruto and a few others who were in his camp. So where were we going to be? And would we be having a country like the one we have now? Would we be sitting here maybe if he decided to go? We have seen other countries where people have decided to go that route and say, I won this election and I am taking nothing less than presidency. Would we be having this election, this other conversation we're having? So much as it would be portrayed that he is doing handshakes here and there, the other fact again that we are missing is, it was then with Uhuru. And Uhuru came out and told us, I went to look for this mzee. And I actually thank him for climbing down and making work easier for me to achieve 1, 2, 3, and the country achieves. Ruto was the other day at KICC telling us, I called him. I told him, you've been my party leader before. I need your help. So why are we not seeing that? Because nobody seems to be talking about why every president is going to him. But everybody is hell-bent on talking about why he is in handshake with every president. Maybe that is what is missing.
Because he's a constant. Raila Odinga is a constant in Kenyan politics. Yeah. I mean, since independence, so to speak, even if that time it was his father.
Yeah.
You see, these politics of, give it to him. He has managed to put his voters in one basket for a very, very long time. The people of Mlima will get scattered once in a while. It's highly unlikely that you're going to put them together for a very, very long time. But I think the power sharing deals are elitist and they actually do not benefit the country. Let's say the truth. The only thing that they do, and that is where my brother is right, is that the political temperatures go down and therefore the environment changes a little bit and people are able to work to the advantage of, most of the time, the holders of power, and not necessarily the people on the ground. If you listen to the people Mashinani say, especially from Nyanza, I heard some young men say that sasa pesa inalala luo Nyanza. I mean, what kind of a joke is that? Yeah, just because you have a minister.
That is voodoo thinking.
But and it happens in very, very many other places. It is the same thing that is eating us, the people of Mount Kenya, with the lost quote deputy presidency or whatever it was, and now everybody feels kiti ilikuwa yetu yenyu na nani. Most of the time, it's about the people, the holders of power, and their families, period.
You've actually described the Stockholm syndrome, whereby majority of Kenyans are falling in love with their captors, and their captors are politicians. So whatever happens to the political society, most of Kenyans are very rational for almost 5 years. But as they step into the polling station, they go back to their tribal cocoons and they remember that I'm supposed to vote in a particular manner. The Japanese have got a philosophy, wabi-sabi philosophy, where people see the beauty in imperfections. So for all his mistakes, Raila Odinga, when he tells Meshack jump, Meshack will not ask why, he will ask how high. Yeah, sorry? Yes. Now, as you come to the conclusion of the show, ladies first, Cathy, what is your controversial opinion? An opinion that is going to rattle people.
I don't want to rattle people today. I don't want to rattle anyone. But I think a time has come and Kenya is ripe for real change. If you talk to people, people want change. But we must be able to, to midwife a better change than what we have offered before. The reason why I say this is because the politics of Kenya, even the trend that has been set right now, the narratives that have been set by the politicians, both from the government side and from the opposition, are the same. Same monkeys, different forest. I think we need, the millennials and the Gen Zs have a capacity to change this nation by ensuring that we give power to people who care about this country, who care about us, and people who mean well for this country. And for me, is actually a call to all of us that let's now have a genuine national conversation.
But somebody may argue that change is not necessarily good, because if you speak to part of the US electors, they voted for change, they got Mr. Donald Trump, and the tariffs are going to inflict economic pain. So change may not necessarily be a good thing. In my view, maybe what we need to do is improve the matrix when you're looking at leaders, that who do you want to get into office. If you merely elect representatives, then they're going to represent your interest. They may not necessarily have a capacity and competence, or maybe again we run away from our tribal thinking. And I've seen Noordean taking notes furiously about his controversial opinion.
Not controversial per se, but mine is more or less about the judiciary. 2 days ago, there's a decision from the Court of Appeal that has come out. And the decision from the Court of Appeal has put the country in a place where people are asking themselves questions. And rightfully so, this stems to the fact that our institutions have by and large been under attack. You know, this administration doesn't like institutions, more so independent institutions. So you have a scenario where Gachagwa's case now has some lifeline. In that, the decision from the Court of Appeal where it rightfully says, and I told a couple of friends of mine who were actually representing the government, courtesy, by government here I mean the members of parliament because it's an arm of government. By virtue of the DCJ acting in the acts she acted against the law because those are primarily administrative functions as per the Constitution. In that they cannot be delegated unless one, the CJ conveys to the parties the reason why this is being done. And in this case, that can only be done by the DCJ if A, CJ is dead, has been removed from office, or resigned. To the best of my knowledge, all those three things have not happened to Martha Koome. So you have a scenario where there are Kenyans who are questioning the judiciary, depending on which political divide you belong to. And we do not want to go that line because the reason why we had 207 is because people had no faith in the courts. So we cannot go back there. In as much as there are those who in government would want to control the judiciary, it is high time the judicial officers rise up to the occasion and refuse. Because if you do, because you're seen as a last hope. Remember when the Gen Z demonstrations happened, I spent so much time in court trying to release so many young men. A day, 109, in Guinea 110, 200. Why? Because they felt that is the only place they can get justice. So if now they feel this is somewhere, again, we can't go, the streets we're talking about, that is where people will go. And no one wants to go that route. So the CJ now has a lifeline in reconstituting a new bench as per the ruling of the Court of Appeal. I hope the days coming forward, because politicians will do politics, they will politicize that decision from the Court of Appeal. So in trying to make them not have the relevance they are seeking, make sure that the next bench, because you see Gachagua also maintains that the bench that is there is not impartial. So the CJ has a duty, because their supporters, remember, the CJ has a duty to retain the confidence of Kenyans in the judiciary, because at the end of the day, as cliche as it sounds, that is the last hope every Kenyan has, because you have no executive, you have no legislature, only as per the law, but as per functionality and working for you, they work for themselves at the end of the day.
And I think that is a primary responsibility. Meshack, before we go to the streets.
Yes. My controversial opinion today is on Matiang'i. I actually think Matiang'i started well, but killed the whole ambition immediately. This is why I would say that Matiang'i needed to have given Kenyans the variety that Kenyans need. We don't have to go to an election with either or. Either you are here or here. So Matiang'i was seen like that person who was going to give us a variety. So if you ask me, he would have come, he would have gotten the heroic welcome as many people expected. He would have gone to Kisii, because the Kenyan politics, the reality is home ground must accept you and send you to the rest of Kenyans that you are our son and we are sending you to go save Kenya. And that happened in Kisii. That was beautiful. But his next stop would not be Wamunyoro or anywhere else. His next stop would be the Kisii community. Me, as their son, have sent me to the rest of Kenya to just see what the rest of Kenya think about me. Them, as my people, think I can actually be the president of the republic. But what do other communities across the nation think? That was not to be Wamunyoro, because the moment he landed to Wamunyoro as his next stop, the agenda became Wamunyoro's agenda. And today, if you ask me, Matiang'i don't have agenda. The agenda is already set, because when Wamunyoro invites Kalonzo, Martha, everyone, you can't come to my home and set agenda for me. That agenda is mine. I'm the one who invited all of you. So Kalonzo doesn't have agenda, Martha doesn't have agenda, everybody else who was there don't have agenda. Agenda ni Wamunyoro. and Wamunyoro ndio anawapanga. So that is how I think Matiang'i killed his whole ambition that was good. And lastly, this thing called Gen Z somehow is dying. The reason why I'm saying Gen Z is dying, because if you get to Githurai going inside Mount Kenya, there is no Gen Z that is a standalone. There is Wamunyoro's supporter or maybe the other side of political. But I don't see, this Gen Z is just a Nairobi thing. I don't know whether there is Gen Z in my homeland, in Luo Nation, who does not support Raila and does not support this other side. They are just a standalone Sisini Gen Z. I don't think there is one like that. And Kalonzo can't even point to us one Gen Z in Kitui where he comes from, who is, everybody there will be his supporter or no one. So this Gen Z is a Nairobi thing, and it's just, so it should not take some people too much time to imagine that Gen Z is going to vote us. They are not there.
Your controversial opinion is very controversial because
it is.
during the
everybody in Mount Kenya is either a Munyoro supporter or
during the Munyoro meeting, if you followed it carefully,
yeah.
In fact, Dr. Matiang'i differentiated his message. While the rest of the speakers were saying Ruto must go or a one-term president, Matiang'i captured Kenya's problems and he offered a solution. Again, I think it would be a fallacy to say that there's no Gen Z outside Ruaraka or whatever it is. There is Gen Z everywhere. Maybe what you wanted to say, and you had the English challenges, is that they're not homogeneous and they don't have the same needs or aspirations. Because everybody there's a Gen Z at home, and even if you're looking at Nairobi, maybe the Gen Z's expectations, say a Gen Z in Lavington, and maybe Muthaiga or Kariobangi or Buruburu, it may not be the same, or a Gen Z in Nairobi and one in Mosocho, it may not be the same. But any political player like yourself who tries to rubbish Gen Z, when they check out the scoreboard, 2027, they'll be bleeding.
That would only be proven if you also check out the IEBC register and confirm.
But you see,
they are not the largest number.
Registration is a continuous process.
So and up to now, as we speak, they are not the largest number. I dare you to bring it.
It is fine.
But when are we having elections?
I have checked.
It is in
but when are we having elections?
So you are still, that is hope. Now that is hope.
And
we
hope
are
is
talking
not a
about
strategy.
what is existing. Gen Z is not the largest number of
Dismus,
voters
I'm even
now.
wondering, is after the controversial opinion, I think all the time we end the show. Are we ending this show or we're just starting the
Okay,
show?
just close the show.
Are we closing the show or starting the show?
Please close the show.
Let me tell you. You people, you may not agree with Meshack, but you need to appreciate what he's saying, because I think he has a very pregnant.
No, we had some slight banter.
Yeah, which is okay. But just to support or to add something to what he has said, this is what happens in Kenya all the time, Dismus, and you know this. The problem with Kenya is ICT, impunity, corruption, tribalism. What is eating the Gen Zs right now, even where I come from, is actually tribalism. Because, and I remember having this conversation, when the Gen Zs were on the streets, I was saying, wow, for the first time, this is something I can, look at and hope and really feel inspired as a mother, that as we move ahead, this hope and change is coming. But one old politician that I'm not going to mention, he has mentioned his name, but me sitamtaja. He told me, what Gen Zs are you talking about, Cathy? Gen Zs will vote along tribal lines. I disagreed with him. That time things were very fresh and hot. And when I listen to most young people right now, you can really tell that they have started, either aligning with their tribal leaders and stuff like that. And it is really unfortunate, because I had a lot of hope in the young people. Number two, as we go towards the election, and I think that is what Meshack was saying, the issues of the Gen Zs in Nairobi, whom we interact with almost on a daily basis, and the Gen Zs in the villages are totally different. And that is when you also realize that even the language, even as we talk to them, because it is important that we make them part and parcel of this country. They've been harassed enough by the system. They were arrested, they were maimed, they were killed, they were abducted, all those things. They need to feel part and parcel of this great nation called Kenya. Then we need to understand them. As you deal with a Gen Z in Nairobi, you can deal with, even if the level of education is the same, their issues are different. Their concerns and their interests are different.
I have nothing useful to add. That has been Fireside, the home of politics, policy and polity. Meshack. Thank you very much. Meshack,
Meshack,